Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name's Ostego, aka Grayson Swordtech, and welcome back to the how to install classic MechWarriors on modern operating systems. This is the third video in which we'll be going over MechWarrior 4. We'll actually be going over all of them: MechWarrior 4 Vengeance, Black Knight, and Mercenaries, as well as the Clan and Innersphere packs. That's a lot, I know. Before we get started, though, there's going to be a few things that you're going to need to get. If you don't already have something that can open zip files, WinRAR or something else like that, I highly recommend getting 7-zip. I'm going to leave links in the description. Just get whichever version matches your version of Windows. It's an awesome free program. I'm actually going to show you guys, once you've installed it, you're actually never going to have to open it again. I'm going to show you how to use it to extract files just by using the right-click options. And the next piece of software that you're going to need is DGVoodoo 2. If you've ever heard of the term glide wrapper, essentially what it's doing is it's converting the data that's coming from the program that's designed for an older version of DirectX, and it's converting it into something that modern graphic cards can read and understand. And because it's doing this, it's being false flagged by like AVG, antivirus, Avast, stuff like that. And I've seen the author for this program actually, speak out on forums. And yeah, no, it's a false flag. I've also checked like Malwarebytes. I've checked their their forums, and it's pretty much confirmed it's a false flag. But it looks like Google, if you have Chrome, is basically telling you that this site has harmful programs because, again, DGVoodoo is being false flagged. If you run into this, click on details and then click on visit the site anyway. It's not dangerous. For the most part, I mean, listen to what Google Chrome is trying to tell you and go away from those sites. For the most part, they're trying to prevent you from falling victim to phishing sites, to falling victim to sites that have actual malware and viruses on them. I've double-checked this, triple-checked it, quadruple-checked it, just because I'm so paranoid about the security of my computer. So I've checked it, and I've been using this thing for a few months now, and I have not run into any issues. But if you still don't feel comfortable downloading this, that's okay. You're not going to be able to get, the classic versions of MechWarrior up and running in 1920 by 1080, unless you do some really crazy stuff where you're going to run into HUD scaling issues and things like that. But if you have another glide wrapper or something like that that you think would work a little bit better for this, I would love to hear it in the comments. This is the best that I've found so far. Now, before we continue on to the rest of the files that you're going to download for the actual game, I have to do some citation here and give a shout out to one of the more involved and useful guides that I found for getting MechWarrior 4 to run, authored by Volkar the Destroyer. Awesome name, by the way. This is a pretty comprehensive guide on how to get MechWarrior 4 to run for modern systems. Unfortunately, as you can see here, as of October of 2019, even Volkar kind of threw in the towel on this. The only stable way is to run it in a virtual machine. I tried this. I tried Hyper-V, which unfortunately sunsetted the ability to pipe your graphics card and sound card through essentially like a remote computer with yourself. So Hyper-V is out of the question. I've tried a few other virtual machine applications, and they just were either not adequate or I wasn't comfortable giving them the amount of access that they needed to my computer. So I bashed my head against the wall for about a month trying to figure this out, and a friend of mine who has an older version of Windows was able to help me out. And what's happening is, for Windows 10 users as of October of 2019, after an update that came through, the auto setup was getting blocked, and it was you need the auto setup to run in order to generate an Options.ini file, and you couldn't. So there was just nothing that you could do. I managed to get around it. I ran DG Voodoo, which was basically able to override like the graphic options. But anytime I tried to go into the, I hit escape and I would go into the options menu to change my controls, the program would instantly crash because it was trying to reference an options.ini file that was incomplete or corrupt. But lucky for you guys, I'm going to link an options file right here, options-sortseq, that's going to be hosted on Critical Rocket's Discord. So big shout out to Critical Rocket for doing that. It's a lifesaver. And it's funny. Volcar is probably gonna laugh. I'm gonna see if I can get in touch with them. They're probably gonna laugh at how simple this solution is. Have somebody with an older version of Windows run the autoconfig and just take the options file from there. All right. So moving on. To get the files for this, you're going to go to MyAbandonware, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to go here. I have a previous search for MechWarrior 3. I'm going to do MechWarrior 4, hit enter. As you can see, a bunch of different MechWarriors are going to come up here. And you're also going to see like MechWarrior 4 Inner Sphere, Mech Pack, and Clan Mech Pack. We're going to want all of these. So I'm going to go ahead and open up Vengeance here. As you can see, I've got tabs for everything else. So MechWarrior 4 Vengeance. I love MyAbandonware. This website's great. I've gotten so many different old games off of it, and I managed to get them up and running and working primarily thanks to the community here. So they have descriptions and they have screenshots and stuff, but they also have a lot of comments and reviews. Now sometimes the comments aren't so helpful. It's just people complaining that they can't get it to run. But sometimes they also leave some really important and useful information in it. Unfortunately for these guys, there's a lot of like, hey, how do I get this to run now? It doesn't run anymore. And again, it's that Windows update in October. I don't know what happened. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to download the ISO version. We're going to download the patch, and we're going to download the no CD for Vengeance. For MechWarrior 4 Black Knight, we're downloading the ISO version and the no CD. Now, MechWarrior 4 Mercenaries. This is actually the one that most people on the forums and elsewhere will tell you to jump straight to. They'll tell you to ignore Vengeance and Black Knight because those are kind of tertiary stories that aren't really relevant to the overall, the arcane story of the novels. Because this takes place during the FedCom Civil War, and technically they're right. In Mercenaries, you have much more interaction in that. But I think Vengeance and Black Knight, even though some of the villains are kind of hammy, and it is a little ham-fisted, I'll admit that. I thought that the story was pretty interesting, and I wanted to know more, so I highly recommend that you guys don't skip Vengeance and Black Knight. But if you do, totally understandable. You have a few options here. You have the original ISO for Mercenaries, if you want to just experience Mercenaries as it was released. And then there's the Mech Tech version, which that's the one I'm going with. If you get the original ISO, you're going to have to get the no CD. If you get the Mech Tech, it's already built in there, and there are a ton of new mechs. There's even battle armor, and there's even like elementals and stuff like that you can actually run around in. And it's really cool. The Mech Tech guys did a really good job with that. I think it's great. That's what I'm going to go with, so that's the one I downloaded. Then for the Clan Mech Pack, it should just be a download, and it should just be a download for, yep, right there, Windows version download for the Clan. So once you've downloaded everything, I highly recommend that you organize it into separate folders. I mean, you guys can see I've got MechWarriors 2, 3, 4, and I've got this separated into folders. If I go to Vengeance, you're going to see that I have a zip folder. I actually have that for everything. I have zip folders as backups for everything. So I'm going to go to Vengeance, going to go to zip, and once you have your files in the folder that you want them in, you're going to right-click them. This is after you've installed 7-zip, by the way. So if you haven't done that, pause the video and do it now. Okay, good. You're going to right-click it, you're going to go to 7-zip, and then you're going to extract to file name. Okay, so you can see that it is extracted to a folder right here. I'm going to do the exact same thing for the patch. Right-click, 7-zip, extract. It's created a folder. I'm going to do the exact same thing for the no CD. Extract. And voila, now I have 3 folders. I'm going to go ahead and cut those and bring them out, just because this is how I organize my files. And you should see that there is a MechWarrior 4 Vengeance win-en-iso. If we go through the folders, you're going to see that there's actually 2 of those. And what this is that MechWarrior 4 was so big that it had to be on 2 discs. And I remember when I was younger, at the time, that kind of blew my mind. Now it's kind of silly. But this is going to be important. I had a friend who tried to mount this into 2 separate drives. Like, he tried to mount them both and then run the install. You can't do that because when you run the install, it's going to be looking for that exact same drive directory. So let me show you what I'm talking about. We're going to take the first one, marked with the number 1, and for Windows 10, and I'm pretty sure for Windows 8, you can just click Mount. For Windows 7 and older, if you download PowerISO 5.5 that I have linked in my MechWarrior 2 video, I believe you should be able to use that to mount it, but I don't have Windows 7, so I can't tell you with complete certainty on that. So we're going to go ahead and click Mount, and you're going to see that, hey, it's basically popped this in just like you would pop something into a drive. It's the digital equivalent of taking a physical disk and popping it into the drive. Now, this is going to be really important. There's a caveat to this in that when we go to eject this and put in the second one, we're going to need to make sure that we go back to another folder. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to run setup. And as you can see, it has popped up. Man, this classic. I love this. All right, I'm going to go ahead and hit install. Blah, blah, blah. Checking, yada, yada. Checking for blah, blah, blah. Now, as you can see, it has C program files. I don't want that because my C drive is just, it's a much smaller drive. It's not where I want to put this. So I'm going to go ahead and click change. And unfortunately, what it does, if I go to path, it's going to have a whole bunch of like stuff after it, and I don't want that. So I'm going to go ahead and on the drives, I'm going to click on new volume, or wherever you're going to be installing it to. This, for me particularly, I'm putting it in E micropros, just because this is for my sanity. I don't want to have to search around my entire computer looking for every single MechWarrior game. So make sure that you select the drive you want it to go to, and then basically just click through the folders. There we go. E micropros. And I do not want to create a desktop icon. Actually, I might have to tell it that I want this to go to /MechWarrior 4. There we go. Yes, I want to set this folder up. Okay. So now it's going to where I want it to go, E micropros MechWarrior 4. I'm going to go ahead and hit install on that one. Now it's kind of funny because back in the day, this install used to take a very, very long time, and you could read through all this stuff. It gives you a nice background on everything. Unfortunately, it's really small on modern screens. It used to be this took up almost the entire screen when you had an old like CRT monitor or something like that, and it used to install a lot slower, so you could really read these things. It was a pretty ingenious way to get around the fact that it takes forever to install this game. By putting in some interesting art and background for the setup or the setting for the video game, I mean, that's awesome. I wish more games had that, you know, the ones that take forever to install. Alright, so now it's telling me please insert the MechWarrior 4 Vengeance disk into drive G. So I'm going to go ahead and go back to my file explorer, and I'm going to make sure that I go to old games, MechWarrior 4 Vengeance, I'm going to make sure that I go to here, my ISO, I'm in this folder, I'm not, hell, let's go back. I'm gonna right click, because I'm not in it, I'm gonna hit eject, everything's fine, the program, you should still hear the music, it's still running. I'm gonna right click and mount the second one. So it's in Drive G, gonna hit OK, yay! We're installing the rest of this, and we never have to worry about mounting those freaking ISOs ever again. Alright, so it has successfully installed MechWarrior 4, it's updated the registry, blah blah blah. I'm gonna go ahead and exit that now. Because I never want to mess with that ISO again. Alright, let's right click and eject it. There we go, MechWarrior 4, Vengeance. We're gonna go ahead and go to the patch update, patch apply, hit yes. Yes, I'm sure I want to patch MechWarrior 4. And it automatically detects where you installed MechWarrior 4, so that shouldn't be an issue. So the patch is applied. Now before I do the no CD, I'm going to go ahead and install Black Knight, primarily because Black Knight is piggybacking on Vengeance, and I don't want to screw up that installation. So I'm going to go to my ISO for Black Knight. Thank God it's only one disk, so we don't have to worry about any shenanigans of ejecting and mounting disks over and over again. So we're going to go ahead and mount. And we are going to click on the setup. And we're going to go ahead and install. It'll automatically detect eMicroPros MechWarrior 4. Next. Now, I don't think that you should have to patch MechWarrior 4 Vengeance because we've already done that. So I'm going to go ahead and say nope. There we go. Black Knight has been installed successfully. Hooray! Alright, so now we have Vengeance and Black Knight installed into our computers. I'm going to go ahead and go to Old Games, MechWarrior 4, Vengeance. I'm going to go ahead and go to the no CD, and then I'm going to open a new folder, go to MicroPros, MechWarrior 4. Now, what's going on here is, you're going to see in the no CD folder, it's MW4. It's an application. Right here in the base folder, there's an MW4. We're going to right click, and we're going to rename that to -old because this is the original. And you don't want to just overwrite an original application launcher because you never know if something's going to go wrong with the cracked version that you're using. So I'm going to copy that. I'm going to go ahead and paste it here. I'm going to hold off on creating this shortcut because I want to show you guys something. Now, MechWarrior 4 Black Knight, you'll actually find there's a folder, MW4X. We're going to click on that, and as you can see, there's an MW4X application. I'm going to rename this -old, because as you guessed it, under our MechWarrior 4 Black Knight files, there's a no CD, MW4X. We're going to copy that, and we're going to put it in that MechWarrior 4 MW4X folder. And this is going to be what we launch from. Now, because I don't want to have to keep going through these folders to find the application launcher, the cracked version, and because I'm going to need to set up a file path later, we're going to create shortcuts to these. So I'm going to go ahead and create a shortcut to this. I'm going to cut it. I'm going to go to my old games, shortcuts. I'm going to go ahead and paste it. And I'm going to do the exact same thing for the original MechWarrior 4 Vengeance. Here it is, right click, create shortcut. I'm going to cut it. I'm going to go to my old games, shortcuts, and I'm going to paste it. Alright, so next let's get MechWarrior 4 Mercenaries installed. Old games, MechWarrior 4, Mercenaries. You'll see that I have a zip for it. Here is the mech tech. You would just right click, 7-zip, extract to. I already have that, so I'm going to cut, I'm going to paste that there. And what's kind of funny is, if I click through all this stuff, you're going to see that it's actually, there's no ISO, there's no install files, it's just MechWarrior 4 Mercenaries. You could technically just run this from wherever you downloaded it to, but again, I'm not going to do that just because I want to be able to quickly find these things. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to copy this folder, the base folder. I'm going to go to my microprose folder and I'm just going to paste it. Alright, and now that I've pasted it, I'm going to rename it MechWarrior. I haven't been capitalizing. For Mercs. Okay, MechWarrior 4 Mercs. Here it is. Blah, blah, blah. Excellent. Okay. Now we're going to go ahead and go back to our old games. MechWarriors, MechWarrior 4. Now, what's kind of interesting, let's go ahead and eject the Black Knight CD. And we're going to go ahead and go to our Inner Sphere Mech Pack. Okay, so we've got our Inner Sphere ISO, and we have the serial. So we're going to go ahead and right click and mount this. Now we're going to click on Setup. Yes. And calculating disk space, blah, blah, blah. We're going to go ahead and install it. And it's going to ask us for the product key. Unfortunately, you cannot just copy paste this thing. I know that kind of sucks. So my recommendation for this, if you don't want to end up just, having to write this thing down on a post-it note or something, get your cell phone out and use the camera mode, and it's a heck of a lot easier. Okay, we've got our serial key entered, and we can go ahead and hit next. Blah, blah, blah. Hit next. Now, it should automatically detect where you installed your MechWarrior 4 your installation path. So mine is E microprose MechWarrior 4. That is correct. Install. Yay, no update needed. Hooray, because we've already patched it. Okay, perfect. Now we're going to end up doing this for the exact same thing for the clan mech pack. So I'm going to go ahead and eject the inner sphere. Go back to my MechWarrior 4 folders. Go to clan, right click, mount. And before I get that running, let me go ahead and exit this because I don't want to accidentally put in the wrong serial key. I'm going to get my phone out. I'm going to take a picture of that real quick. There we go. We go here, click on setup. Yes. All right, we're going to go ahead and install and enter our key again. Okay, now that our CD key is put in, we're going to hit next. Blah, 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 next. Yep, it detected the right spot. E microprose MechWarrior 4. Next. And that was a super quick install, huh? Ding dong, no update needed. Excellent. Alright, so now we have both the clan and inner sphere mech packs installed. I'm going to go ahead and eject that. We're almost done, I promise. I know this is kind of a long one. So we've got MechWarrior 4 Vengeance, Black Knight, Mercenaries, and all of this stuff installed. Great. The next step in this is to download the options-sortech file from Discord that's linked in the video description. You're going to put this somewhere safe because you really do not want to lose this file. You're going to copy it, and you are going to find, I'm going to go ahead and exit that. You're going to go ahead and find wherever you installed your MechWarrior 4 games to, MechWarrior 4, and in the base folder you're going to find, if it isn't already there, options-sortech. Yeah, so when I initially set this up, I tried to run the autoconfig, and of course it didn't work, and it gave me this broken options.ini file. You shouldn't run into that because you're not going to try to run the autoconfig. We're just going to use the options that I've already got set up from what my friend was able to generate. So we're going to rename this just options. Just options. And we're going to do the exact same thing in MechWarrior 4X. So I'm going to go ahead and right click, rename, and that's going to be options. There we go. And we're doing this before we do DG Voodoo, primarily to make sure that when you run DG Voodoo, whatever video settings you set up with DGVoodoo does not somehow get overridden by the options file that I'm providing, right? So if you're running DGVoodoo and you're running it in a different resolution, and then after you do that, you put in the options .ini, you might run into some weird resolution issues. So we're going to go ahead and put in the options.ini now. And I'm going to do the exact same thing for Mercenaries. Now, technically, they actually already bundled it, or it should already be bundled. Yep, right there with an options.ini. I found that, at least on my system, running Mercenaries with their options file, I ran into some really interesting glitches where I don't know if it's a compatibility issue with DGVoodoo and the way that they packaged MechTech Mercenaries, but I kept running into enemies that were literally invulnerable, and I kept running into really odd UI scaling options where I couldn't see what my weapons were. So my recommendation is to use the options.ini file that I'm providing. You guys might not run into that issue with MechTech. You might use a different glide wrapper or something, or maybe you don't run into it with DGVoodoo, but those are the issues I ran into. So I've tested it with this options folder, and I've played like a bunch of different instant actions, and I didn't run into it again. So yeah, that's all I can really say about it. All right, so now that we've got the options.ini files put into the main folders for this, we're going to install DGVoodoo for everything. So go to wherever you put that with your tools. If you haven't already unzipped it, unzip it. And what we're going to end up doing is we're going to be copying a few files. We're going to copy the application and the config. And I'm going to go ahead and create a new window just so that I can Alt-Tab and I don't have to keep clicking back and forth. Go to MechWarrior 4, wherever the base install is. Paste DGVoodoo and the DGVoodoo config. Go back, and what you're going to do is you're going to go to the MS folder. And this is where some of the guides out there get kind of fuzzy. They talk about just copying the files in the MS folder over. But maybe their version of DGVoodoo didn't have these two different options. Even if you're running a 64-bit operating system, this is a 32-bit program. So ignore the 64-bit folder and go with, it says x86, this is 32-bit. You're going to copy all of these DLLs over to the base folder. And you're going to end up doing this multiple times. You're going to do this for MechWarrior 4 Black Knight. Since I already have them copied, I'm just going to go ahead and paste those. And I'm going to find the config and the application. I'm going to paste it. I'm going to go to MicroPros, Mercenaries. I'm going to paste it there. I'm going to go to the x86. And I'm going to paste it there. So basically, just make sure to copy and paste all the DLLs and the config and the DGVoodoo application to each MechWarrior 4 folder. So let's show you guys what options you're going to be going with. Go ahead and launch DGVoodoo, and it should say, or this part right here should reflect where you've installed it. So for me, it's E MicroPros MechWarrior 4. E MicroPros MechWarrior 4. If it doesn't do that for some reason, click on the // Alright, now we're going to select our graphics card, and we're going to select our display. Now, I only have one display. I know some people out there have two. As far as I know, you are basically just going to have to pick a display and go with it. I have not found anything online about trying to run MechWarrior 4 on multiple displays, nor do I have the equipment to really be able to test that, so I'm sorry, but you're just going to have to pick one. The really important part is that we're going to click on enumerated refresh rates, and I'll get to that in a minute. I'm going to go with full screen. I know some people like windowed, but I'm not really sure why you would do that with an older game, unless you had some kind of issue with the way that it scales up. I haven't run into that, so I'm going to go with full screen. And this is the really cool part about DGVoodoo. I'm going to go with stretched 4:3 aspect ratio. So it's going to make it 1920 by 1080 for me. but it's going to keep the 4:3 aspect ratio for things like my mouse. So I'm not going to run into that weird mouse acceleration on the horizontal plane. Alright, so now I'm going to go over to my DirectX tab. It should say DG Voodoo Virtual 3D Accelerated Card. Excellent. I'm going to go ahead and give it about a gig of VRAM. I'm going to take the filtering, I'm going to max that, and I'm going to do the exact same thing for the anti-aliasing. Now here's the really important part. You can run this at whatever resolution you want. I'm going to run it at 1920 by 1080, but the really important part is that whatever resolution you select, make sure it's at 59 Hz. The reason for this is that older games would base their physics on things like frame rates and refresh rates. And if you have something like, let's say you didn't click on the enumerated refresh rate, and you have a TV or something that can do like 120 Hz, you're running it at basically double the speed. So you're going to run into like crazy physics. The AI is going to be running around like a roadrunner. Like it's going to be ridiculous and unplayable. So make sure that you've got 59 Hz selected, no matter what resolution you go with. I'm going to do bilinear blitz stretching and force VSync. And this is actually a really good point that a friend brought up. I'm going to leave DG Voodoo watermark on for now for the testing purposes, just to make sure that it actually applies to the game. For my Let's Play, and once you actually know that it's running, I recommend turning that off. But for right now, I'm keeping it on just to make sure that everything has applied correctly. So I'm going to go into my MechWarrior 4 Black Knight. I'm going to run DG Voodoo, and I'm going to go through the exact same process where, okay, yep, it's set to the right location. I'm going to select my graphics card, my display, full screen, stretched 4:3, enumerated refresh rates, DirectX. Yes, this is the correct option. I'm going to go ahead and go to a gig of VRAM, max out my filtering and anti-aliasing. Scroll down, find my 1920 by 1080 at 59 Hz, and there we go. Alright, and it's going to be the exact same thing for MechWarrior 4 Mercenaries. You're going to launch DG Voodoo, and here we go. Enumerated refresh, 4:3 aspect ratio unstretched. As you can see, it's really not that hard to select all this stuff, unless you accidentally click outside of it. Resolution 1920 by 1080 at 59. We're going to max this stuff out just to make it look nice and pretty on our big screens. And there we go. We have set the video options for everything, and we are almost done. Before I go any further, MechWarrior 4 Mercs, I'm going to take this application, MechWarrior 4 Mercs. I'm going to create a shortcut for it, cut it, go to my old games, shortcuts, and I'm going to paste it. Now, the reason why we did that is actually really, really important. I'm not just doing that for the sake of organizing everything. I'm doing that because we have launch parameters that we're going to have to set, and you can only do that when you set something up as a shortcut. So, if I go to my shortcuts over here, now what I found is, go ahead and ignore these two. This is some stuff that I found online, and I was going through, and I managed to get everything to launch and to work correctly using this, but you're going to run into some serious issues if you just use what you find online. Like, for example, this /gosnovideo. If you apply that, and you try to run MechWarrior 4 and you do the campaign, well, what it's doing is it's blocking you from seeing any in-game videos. So all the mission briefings, which are these, live recorded videos, you're not going to be able to see. So you're not going to know what the hell is going on. I found that this is actually the best launch parameter to run everything with and still see the videos and still get the best performance. So I'm going to leave a link in the description. Well, not a link, but I'm going to put this in the description on its own line. So make sure you copy it exactly. You're going to go over to your shortcut. You're going to right click it and go to properties. Now, here's the really important part. You see how it says target and then this is all highlighted and there's this little line right here after the quotation? I'm going to paste that in there, but I'm going to scroll back using my number key to make sure that there is a space between the quotation mark and the dash. Because if you don't have that space, it's not going to run the parameters correctly. So I'm going to go ahead and hit apply. And I'm just basically going to paste it to all of them. Properties, shortcut, in the target path right after. I'm going to paste it, use my arrow key to go back, and yep, the space is there. Alright, perfect. Same thing with mercenaries. And basically what we're doing is we are telling Windows, okay, we know that this is a 32-bit application, so force it to run with a 32-bit. If you have Windows 10 32-bit or Windows 8 32-bit, you shouldn't run into this issue. But if you're like me and you have a 64-bit, you might run into an issue where it basically sends MechWarrior 4 to your background processes and never lets it launch. So that's what this target path is for. Okay, so now that we've got our command prompts in there, we're going to right-click, go to Properties. I almost forgot about this part. We're going to go to Compatibility, and we're going to make sure that this is set to run as an administrator. We're going to do this for all of them. And the reason for that is that we don't want the auto-config to overwrite our Options.ini file. Run as administrator, blah, blah, blah. Alright, so if I go to MechWarrior 4 and I launch it, yes. Alright, and it looks like the game is launched. And I'm going to go ahead and go to the options, and it should default to the first person. I prefer third person. You should be able to go into the controls. Make sure you have mouse turned on, and make sure that you have it set to torso. This will be how you set up your kind of MW4 controls. So like turn left is A, turn right is D. You don't need the torso twisting or anything like that, but acceleration, deceleration, you're going to need that. Jump jets, I'm going to put as space. Throttle, I don't care. Center, torso to legs is going to be F. Fire, I don't care. Change firing mode is going to be backspace. Select next weapon, I'm actually going to set as a bar. Fire group 1, this is actually kind of important. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I do that because as I got my hands on the WASD keys, the number keys are pretty close. So if I, for some reason, have a weapon in 4 and 5, like I just have that many different weapons, it's really easy for me to select that. Alright, so next enemy, previous enemy is going to be Q, nearest enemy is going to be Shift W, target under reticules R, next friendly is Shift E, Shift, I guess we don't need to target, oh no, Shift S. Let's see, toggle zoom window is actually going to be one of my mouse keys. There we go. I'm going to go ahead and turn my look left, look right, toggle radar range, active passive, there we go, map, override, auto shutdown. Shift O is kind of a weird key to hit in the middle of battle, so I'm just going to go ahead and turn that to O. I do not need flush coolant is going to be Shift F. Show mission objectives is going to be tab, nav points, that's fine. Down, look back. Toggle light amplification is going to be K, searchlight is L, eject I don't really ever use. Crouch, get up, those are important. I know they don't have that in MWO, but you can actually be knocked over, so make sure your get up key is defined. I actually do not want, I want all stop to be X, not not start up and shut down. So up, set throttle to 0. That's going to be X. There we go. That's what I was missing. Alright, okay. And because you're using my Options.ini file, when you hit OK, it's not going to crash the game. So I'm going to go ahead and do instant action. Let's... what is it set to? Let's go with a Shadow Cat. Sure, whatever.
This is it, gentlemen. Work beds, move out.
Throttle full, weapons online.
Alright, as you can see, I've launched into the game. I can look around, I'm not having any issues. I can open that up. Oh, something I messed up. And I highly recommend that you do either the training or you do instant action to get your controls kind of set up correctly. Fire Group 2 is going to be... Fire Group 1 is 1, Fire Group 2 is 2, Fire Group 3 for me, it's not going to detect that, so that kind of sucks. Okay. Alright, there you go. As you can see, I'm firing everything. I can get my... There we go. That is so freaking cool. I mean, not that it's surprising, because I've already done this probably 4 or 5 times, but I hope you guys are excited. You are now playing MechWarrior 4 Vengeance. Hopefully you're not missing like I am all the time.
Ouch. Looks like pulse lasers. Not much punch, but there's enough of them to do some damage.
That's right. Missile boats. Oh, pardon me.
Hey, we're taking fire.
Looks like we've got some LRMs to deal with.
Oh, stepped in some Steiner.
There we go. Now, me, because I'm an old man, I might decide that I'm going to turn down the mouse sensitivity just a little bit. I usually default it to somewhere around there. Okay, so, yeah, I mean, this thing is running. You can mess with the options. You can change it around. Oh, that is so much better. Okay.
I thought these guys were supposed to be tough.
I feel like that. And because I already know that it's going to happen, some a-holes trying to run away from us, and we got to make sure that they can't get out of here.
Omega Lance, we show vehicles moving outward from facility.
Ha,
Neutralize
you
all
did.
mobile units. They might ward other Steiner forces.
Roger that, Control.
There it is.
Must have been something good in that one.
Probably just O2 venting off. But try not to get too close to the explosion. Try and catch some traffic.
God, come on. Let me jump. Let me jump.
Keep your eyes open and check your targets.
Target destroyed. Target destroyed. Target destroyed. Target destroyed. Target destroyed. Target destroyed.
Alright, there we go. We've completed the first mission. Hooray! Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and exit. So yeah, there you go. Yes, this program worked correctly. Thank you, Windows. So there you go. That's how you get MechWarrior 4, Vengeance, Black Knight, and Mercenaries to run on current operating systems and hardware. Now here's the funny thing. I know that there's mods out there for this, and for a while there was an online community, but from what I read, it's kind of dead now. The Mech Tech guys were actually supporting multiplayer through MechWarrior 4 Mercenaries Mech Tech, but I believe they were shut down by PGI, unfortunately. So if you guys are looking for a multiplayer experience of the MechWarrior series, I wouldn't really recommend MWO just because there's a lot of microtransactions in there. It can get really grindy. You're gonna come across a lot of the same maps over and over again. They're pretty small. Um, it's just I've been playing it for years, and it's not what it used to be. But there is MechWarrior Living Legends, which is a heck of a lot of fun, and you should see a lot more of that content on my YouTube channel as my unit most likely transfers from MWO to MechWarrior Living Legends. Critical Rocket, who's hosting the Options.ini file, actually does or has done some MechWarrior Living Legends live streams. I highly recommend that you guys check out those videos because it is hilarious, it's fun to watch, and you can really get a feel for what Living Legends has to offer. If there's any kind of feedback or if you guys run into any issues, please let me know in the comments. And once again, thanks for watching. Until next time!